Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. Jacqueline. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. Jacqueline at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to USA Global TV, and hello to our friends listening on Business Talk Radio. I am Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, and our show today is Talking Heads. Talking Heads are people who are elites in their field. They are experts, and they come here and present a lesson in 30 minutes or less. I am so privileged to have this wonderful team. I learned so much from them. Today, we are being joined by Mariska du Preez. She is my personal and business coach as well. She is a transformation and leadership coach, and she is based out of New Zealand. And due to some technology opportunities, we are bringing her on, but we will not be able to see her face. So it's going to be a great show anyway. Let's welcome Mariska. Hi, Mariska. How are you?
Hello. This is a little bit different than normal. So it is full on radio style today. You can, if you are looking at the podcast, you can only see my face and a wee little ring around it as my voice goes up and down, which is really interesting. So this is going to be fun.
It is going to be fun. So, Mariska, you have another wonderful lesson prepared for us today. I'm going to go ahead and bring up your deck. I'm going to go backstage, and I will let you take over the show.
Thank you very much. Okay, so today we are in our third installment of Awesome Communication. For those of you that has only joined us today, the other ones you can find on YouTube, or otherwise also on my website. So for our Awesome Communications, before we get started, I am Mariska du Preez, as Dr. Jacqueline said, and I am an engineer turned leadership development explorer and coach. So I really enjoy working with leaders and high achievers, helping them up their game. And we normally focus in two main areas. For today, we will be focusing on communication though, and we will be looking at the influence pictures has on our communication. Now, before we get started, when you hear the word picture, what do you think of? I know for some people it might be a physical picture, like a photo that comes up, and for other people it might be a moment in time, so more like a moving pictures that comes up. So we all experience pictures a little bit different. And this quote by Alan Klein is really illuminated for me how we can experience picture in our life. So he said, your attitude is like a box of crayons that color your world. Consistently coloring your picture gray, and your picture will always be bleak. Try adding some bright colors to the picture by including humor, and your picture begins to lighten up. And this is the perspective of picture that I want to discuss a little bit more today. So we will be looking at physical pictures, but we will also look at the internal pictures that we create for ourselves. So going back to the research that was done on water that we discussed in our words part of communication, we noticed that words has an influence on water. So they did another test or another experiment on the water and took pictures of different things to see the effect that pictures might have on water. So they took pictures of a whole range of different items. So they took pictures of flowers and animals and structures, and they exposed the water to the pictures, or the pictures to the water, whichever way you want. And then they had a look at what influence the pictures had on the water. And when you look at the slide, you will see that the pictures had quite a significant influence and change in structure on the water. So the three examples that we have here is we have the dolphin, which is a really elegant crystal. Then we have the cherry blossom, and the crystal looks sort of like a flower. And then we also have the Egyptian pyramid. And that structure looks really, really complex, and it almost has the sense of going up like a pyramid does. So even the pictures, a physical picture, can have a difference on our environment and, as we can see, on water. So doing a little bit of a self-check on pictures, what pictures do you favor around yourself? So we surround ourselves with pictures on a daily basis. We have art against the wall. We have pictures on our desktops. We have pictures on our phones. There is pictures literally everywhere in our environment. In addition, if we think back to Alan's quote, we also have internal pictures. So the pictures that we have within ourselves, it might be that it is the way that we see the world or experience the world. Our picture might be very structured, or our picture might be very fluid. We might be very artistic about how we see the world and experience the world. So the pictures that we make for ourselves will look a lot different from one person to the next. And knowing what pictures we favor, we can also start looking at the patterns that we see. So when we look at the pictures that we favor, what patterns sort of emerge out of those pictures? Are we very heavily reliant, for example, looking or hearing or experiencing it from a certain perspective? And as you heard, I mentioned looking, hearing, and experiencing. So the picture that we have internally doesn't necessarily need to be something that we see with our eyes. We can experience this picture in other modalities. It might be connected to smells. It might be connected to sounds. There is a very wide variety of things that we might relate more to than others. So what's the way that you as an individual create these pictures for yourself? And what patterns do you see? So when we are, for instance, very structured in our thinking, when we think of pictures, it might include graphs, or it might include tables or lists. Whereas when we are a little bit more artistic about the way that we think about things, it might include bright colors, or if I'm very much sensory more in the smell department, it might include different smells in my pictures. So when I am, for instance, thinking about a lemon, right? what is it about the lemon that you notice first? If I say, think about a lemon, imagine you have a lemon right in front of you. What is it that you think of first? Do you think of the smell of the lemon, how the lemon feels, the vibrancy of the color of the skin of the lemon, maybe how it tastes, what you can do with the lemon? So we all experience, it's one lemon, but we will all experience it a little bit different. And this brings us actually to our second part. So the first part is our own favor of pictures, how we interact with it. Secondly is how other people interact with it. So within our workplace and any other place where we are communicating with other people, they have a certain way to think about pictures too. So I might experience the lemon from the smell perspective. So the first thing I think of when I think of a lemon is I think of the smell of a lemon. And it reminds me of freshness. Another person, the very first thing they might think of when they think of a lemon is the color of the lemon. So if I explain a lemon and I only talk about the smell of this fruit, and another person explains it and they only talk about how it looks like, we might not understand that we're actually talking about the same thing. And this is something to consider when we communicate with other people. So we might have somebody that's really structured, they work with a lot of numbers, or they work with a lot of charts and lists. Or we might have somebody that is influenced more by ideas and big picture thinking and looking at ways to innovate. So they will look at the same thing quite differently. Or, yet again, we might have somebody that's very targeted, very focused on taking action, knowing exactly what it is that they need to do, but they might not necessarily think about the big picture or long-term effects that might occur. So taking these things into consideration when we communicate is really important, because there's two elements to this. Firstly, we want to ensure that our communication is clear and that we actually bring across the point that we want to bring across to the other person. So when I'm speaking to my boss and I want him to really, really support a project I'm busy with, I want to communicate in the best way for my boss, not for myself, because I need my boss's support in order for me to be able to implement the project or have some funding for the project or whatever it is that I need for the project. And communicating from where it's easy for me to understand, it might not be as easy for my boss to understand. So understanding what pictures the other person use for themselves in their communication, so the way that they form the pictures in their head for their own communication, is really important when we're communicating to other people. So that's the first element of it. The second element of it is that when we're in a group, when we're in a team and we need to present to more than one individual, we need to take into consideration to have a range of different elements within our communication to enable us to at least hit most of the people in the room. So there, in a team communication environment, it's a little bit more tricky to have specific catered communication, because everybody won't be structured. Everybody won't be global or big idea thinkers. So we need to make sure that we have a little bit of everything in what we are communicating in order to make sure that all the different elements are covered and we can at least get most of our audience on board. So ensuring that we take these elements into consideration. So that's really important in communication, because communication really is about being able to have a conversation which is two-way, right? It's not just me talking, it is also me listening to the other person so that we can collaborate and we can together create this thing that we want to be creating. So that brings us to our intention table. Now, with our intention table, you might want to use it as a table if you are very structured. If you are less structured, this might just be a thinking exercise that you go through, and you don't need to necessarily write it down. But to make it nice and easy for us today, I pulled up a little table, and on the table we have our source, so the place, the environment to think about, where we're going to apply what we just discussed, and then of course the way that we're going to apply it, our intentions and what we're going to think about. So the example that we have here is I took the work environment. So the intention of my communication is I want to get support from my manager on a project. Now, first I think about what's my picture patterns, and I like spreadsheets and I really like information, right? So when I like spreadsheets and information, if I get a presentation and there's a lot of numbers on it, it gets me really excited. But my boss, on the other hand, my manager, do not enjoy that as much. They are big picture thinkers and they work with ideas. And because they're big picture thinkers and work with ideas, if I give them a presentation and there's only numbers on it, I'm going to lose them. They are going to be so bored that they'll look at it and just say, yeah, I don't have time for it at the moment. And that's not what I want. I want their support. So the notes that I made was to bring graphs into my presentation. And because they're more big picture thinkers and they work with ideas, to take the information that I've gathered and to put it into a format that they understand better and that they can actually work with better. So if I'm going to do it in a graph of some sort, then it shows them the total picture of what my columns and columns of numbers would have showed them, right? So both of them show them exactly the same thing, but the picture is different. And with the one, they can easily see what they want to see and get the information that they need to get. Whereas with the other one, I enjoy it more because I can go into the detail. They don't want to go into the detail. This might also be flipped. So you might be a big picture thinker and the other person might be very much into the information, the details, and spreadsheets and such. So it might feel that it is a little bit more difficult to do it that way, but seeing whether you can highlight more of that detail within your presentation would keep their interest. So that brings us to our awareness and intention slide, of course. So the first thing to consider is what is new in our awareness. Now that we know all of this, what's new for us? What picture patterns do I observe in my internal and external environments so that I know myself and I know my own preferences? right? There's no good or bad. It's a preference. It's something we like, and that's good. What pictures do I use most in my communication? So do I use a lot of lists, or do I use a lot of vague ideas? So maybe it is just a picture to symbolize something, but there's not a lot of detail in it. So what do I use a lot of in my communication? What pictures does my most important person or people respond positively to? So here it is, knowing what my manager, how they use their thinking and their pictures for themselves. How does the rest of my team work? What do they prefer, right? Are they very action orientated? So yes, it's fine and well to have all the details, but they want to know what to do. What's the next step? So being very clear on those elements will then take us to intention. So being intentional with this information that we now have, what picture patterns serve me best? And then, of course, what picture patterns would serve us in this specific conversation? Might it be that I need to change my picture patterns from one presentation to the next, even though the presentation, the information in it, is exactly the same, right? It might need some changing because my audience is a bit different and the way that they think is different. So I need to highlight other things, other aspects. And then how can I use pictures to create more good vibes around me? And yeah, you can really go nuts. It can be anything from internal to external to anything in between. Your environment, the way that you think about it, really finding those silver linings around dark clouds, and taking your crayon box and using all the colors in it, not just gray. And that then brings us to the end of our lesson for today. When you guys want to contact me, the best way to get hold of me is by my email. So my email is mariska@journeytodiscover.com, and the 2 is the number. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn, and I would love to hear how you are implementing your new awareness around pictures into your communication. So please share that.
Well done. Thank you so much, Mariska.
Thank you, Dr. Jacqueline. It is so weird not seeing myself.
I know it's really weird talking to your avatar, but hey, we're just roll with it. So I learned a lot from that lesson. I think that there's some really valuable information there. I was thinking back to when I was at corporate and how I would have managers or leaders who basically were into spreadsheets and the numbers. And as soon as I see a spreadsheet, I sort of glaze over. And you like spreadsheets and numbers, so it just goes to show you. And also, in the beginning when you mentioned lemon, I thought of hot tea because my mother always drinks her tea with lemon. If she doesn't have the lemon, she's not drinking the tea. So it is interesting what pictures come up in our mind.
It is. And it also, I remember, so I enjoy information and I enjoy spreadsheets. I do remember, however, having especially when we had our financial presentations and feedbacks, most people will either try to avoid the meeting or get very, very tired during the meeting because it is very information dense and none of it ever felt fun. It really didn't. I mean, it's a whole bunch of numbers and nothing else.
It's interesting. You bring up a good point. In my experience as in the corporate world, I sold meetings and events, and you could go to a conference and they've got, an amazing keynote speaker, or maybe they've got some live music. And whenever the CFO would come up, you could hear, because you're going to hear numbers, and then you see those charts, and it's sort of like you're looking, what are those? I know it's small, I know it's hard to read, and people are thinking, yes, I am checking out right now. So it's a really good point, because you want to make sure you understand your audience, how they like to receive information, and especially if it's somebody who is in a superior position to you in an organization, you definitely want to know if they want those numbers and they want those spreadsheets, you better deliver them.
Exactly. Another thing that I found is, so I had in our organization, during the time that I was there was 2 power station managers that I worked under quite a lot. So with the one, if I wanted to do a project and I needed to go and justify for the finances for the project, with that one specific power station manager, I needed to focus a lot on the numbers and explain a lot around the numbers. So my presentations was really information dense. And then, of course, the very first time with the new power station manager, I thought, okay, well, this normally worked, so this is all good. I've got it covered. So I went with my very information dense presentation, as I normally would. And I think if it was 10 minutes in, it was a lot. I could just see this poor guy. He tried really, really hard to look interested in what I am doing, because it's important, but it felt like I lost him.
Yes.
So I did a little bit more research just to try and figure out what it is that he preferred. And he was a little bit more of a big picture ideas person. So just coming from a big picture idea sort of perspective, even though there still needed to be some numbers in there, because, it is around finances, it made it easier to show pie charts and ways that the different things actually interacted with one another, because then it was easy for him to understand. So the information is still there. It just felt a little bit easier to digest for him. Yes. And after I got that little recipe sorted out, it was so much easier.
See, you give people what they want the way they like it, and then it's better for you and it's better for them. So another wonderful lesson, Mariska. Thank you again for being here, and really enjoyed this. We have another Talking Head show coming up right now. So Mariska, I'm just going to put up your deck again so that people can see how to get in touch with you. For people on the radio, her email address is Mariska, that's Mariska, at journey2discover.com. And of course, her website is journey2discover.com. And of course, she's on LinkedIn. So please do contact her. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you, Mariska.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. Enjoy the rest of your day.
I will, and I'm definitely going to enjoy the next show.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, folks, we are going to wrap up right now. I'm going to jump over to the other studio and meet with Jean Keegan Daly, and we will get the show on the road. So thanks again for being here. Wherever you're watching us, do stay there, as we have one more show today. Thank you.